Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's Tableau Server Admin Virtual User Group. My name is Mark Wu. I'm a Tableau Server Admin and also a Tableau Zen Master. Today's session focusing on data management add-on. I will talk about catalog and the Tableau Prep Conductor and show you some advanced use cases. And then Sanjeev Verma, a senior product manager from Tableau, will talk and demo the brand new virtual connection data policy. We do have a poll still open. We're going to close it in a minute to get a quick answer sense from everyone about where you are for the version and for those add-ons. Some quick logistics. Everyone is muted during the whole session for better recording quality. Yes, this is recorded, and you will find the recordings in the community. But I do have a shortcut for you to get to the recordings and also all the previous recordings. If you go to this website, it happens to be my blog site, enterprisetableau.com. There is a server admin tag link. I do have a prominent link over there just for everyone to find all the previous recordings. Please use Q&A button to submit questions at any time. And actually, everyone is welcome to answer those questions as this is a community event. We will try to answer some of your questions as we go, but we will have a dedicated Q&A time at the end. Okay, let's get started. Let me end this poll very quick. We can get started. Okay, let me get started. Shall we end the poll? Okay, why not let me read the poll very quick with everyone for you, where we are right now. First question, what's the version? Looks like there are 1/3 audience already on 21.4. You are awesome. I will be there next month. And there are also 1/3 audience at 21.1 or older. The other 1/3 is between 21.2 and 21.3. That's based on 150 response so far. Second question, do you have a data management add-on? 30% saying yes, like me. Third question, do you have a server management add-on? 20% say yes. I'm gonna end the poll right now, thank you. And let's get started. Hold on a second, just let me get the poll out of my way. Let's get started. Tableau Catalog and the Tableau Prep Conductor. 1/3 of you have those modules like me. I love Tableau's path of innovation. I'm not a Tableau desktop guy, but in the last couple of years, this is pretty much my only Tableau workbook on the Tableau public got some attention. I've been tracking Tableau's releases and major features. 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, Tableau came out with data management add-on. And then follows server management add-on. Last month, Tableau came with a virtual connection and data policy. Those 4 things are what we are going to focus on. Double click very quick. Back to 21.1. Tableau Prep Conductor is out. And 21.3 with Tableau Catalog and the server management add-on. For last few releases, Tableau keep enhancing those add-on features as well, like incremental extracts and prep writes back to external database. It's pretty significant. And now you can also build a prep flow in web, basically using web edit feature. And came up with a data quality warning. I'll show you the use case. 21.3 came with it's called prep linked task. You can have multiple preps going on one by one, refresh on the server. And by the end, send you email, hey, I'm done. Pretty cool, actually. And most recently, last month, Tableau came with a virtual connection and data policy. This is what we are going to talk by Sanjeev today. What is Addon? It means you pay extra as you go. On the other side, it means Tableau does not have to charge the small, medium-sized customers for those features. I have both. I strongly recommend data management add-on. Let's dive into that very quick. Let's talk about the license. Okay, I need to be very careful when I talk about Tableau license. I'm not related to Tableau sales at all. Okay, all this information is available at tableau.com. Okay, I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. But license is very difficult to understand, very complex. Let's talk about it as a customer of Tableau. When you go to tableau.com, you will see a bunch of different licenses. Right now, it's mainly Tableau promotes, of course, subscriptions, right? Creator, Explorer, and the Viewers. That's a different type of license subscriptions. If you go with Tableau Online, slightly few more dollars every single month for different kind of licenses. And then you will find Tableau Data Management add-on and the Tableau Server Management add-on as extra. They used to have a price tag available publicly. Right now, they took out the price. It says contact sales. I don't know what that means. So no more pricing, list pricing there publicly, but you contact sales. You pay additional whatever dollars negotiation you have with the sales. So that's a pricing model. Okay, let's dive into a little bit of what those modules, server management add-on first. I do have this, but actually I don't know if I recommend. Probably I will not recommend this module, although 20% of you have this already. It has mainly four things. Server resource monitoring. You just pull the log right in the Postgres database. It's the same Postgres database hosting our Tableau workbook. It never works for me. My server is too large. It's very hard to set up. That's one reason I don't like it. Content migration. You can move your workbook from one environment to another. I strongly against this idea. Okay, don't try to do this unless your company is really old process you have to follow. Otherwise, don't try to migrate. Just publishing directly to the production server make much easier. You can get rid of the migration step. That's old PDC stuff, waterfall stuff. In Tableau world, let's not follow that thing. Number 3, AWS RDS. Yeah, if your server is on AWS, then you can leverage additional feature. You pay additional RDS service to AWS. You can get external repository hosted by AWS for better DR. But you pay extra. Now you pay extra to the AWS as well. Number 4, I think that's the only thing I'm using. Okay, you can optimize the backgrounder, more choices and so on. It is for me. This is features like should be free. Why they charge extra for those things? But data management add-on, I strongly recommend on the other side. It has prep conductor, has catalog, and Sanjeev will talk about virtual connection and data policy. Let me dive into prep conductor and the catalog, why they are helpful. Let's talk about prep conductor today. Things can be done already without it, without the license. You can still do Tableau prep conductor thing using the command line. Because when you have the Tableau creator license, you automatically can download Tableau prep builder. And with the prep builder, you can actually, using command line, using your own scheduler on your Mac, on your PC, you can send the extracts to the server already by yourself by connecting to your data source. You can do step 1, 2 already today. Some customers are doing this, nothing wrong. If this works for you, it works for you. But what you cannot do is you cannot refresh this more like your flow easily. Every publisher has to have their own schedule refreshed on their own machine, basically. It's okay approach, but it's can be better. So better approach is you have a license. That's a prep conductor. It does 2 things, high level. One is publishing the flow similar as what they do when they're publishing the Tableau workbook data source. Very similar process. And another step, once the flow is on the server, you can schedule them. You can refresh the flow. Same way as you refresh data source workbooks. Very, very same way. So that is the key feature of Tableau prep conductor. Make it simple, easier to get things done. Actually, it's beyond that. Actually, Tableau is doing a little bit better than that. I'm going to run through a few key features why it's prep conductor. Once you have it, you will love it. So not only it runs flows on the server, but also it has more strong union feature. It can union the 2 published data sources. I know we've been complaining a long time why Tableau Desktop cannot union the 2 published data sources on the server. It cannot today using Tableau Desktop. Again, if you have data source A, published data source A, published data source B. From the Tableau Desktop today, you cannot union them together, unfortunately. But prep, yes, doable. So that's one feature. The third on the list here is using the prep. You can write the prep output not only to Tableau server, as most of us doing, as a published data source on the server, but also you can write it back to the external database. Think about that. Although it will never override the original table, it has to be another table, but it has ability to overwrite output to outside Tableau. Pretty fancy. And also, as I mentioned before, if you have multiple flows, actually works with 20 flows, it runs 1 by 1. You can add a sequence schedule 1 by 1 and notify me when it's done, when all is done. Also has strong data profiling feature. I love that. Myself, I love that. And when you do the cleaning, you can also do most of the cleaning thing, using calculations of Tableau Desktop, but the cleaning process become visual, much easier, simple when you do so. This is more like Marco's rundown of Tableau prep conductor key features. Move on next, Tableau Catalog. What is catalog? It mainly has 2 features. One is lineage, one is data quality warning. The lineage came first, quality warning came later. Let's talk about both. What is lineage? Why lineage is so hard? lineage can be simple for many other products, but what is lineage? Lineage talks about from Tableau's data source, column, table columns, find out, let's say I have a data source. That is, I have this table, sales table. I want to find out how many workbooks are using my sales table. I mean, this is a very simple question. How many Tableau workbooks on the server using my sales table? Or this column. If I need to drop this column from my EDW, how many workbooks will be impacted? This is a simple question, but somehow become very hard answer for Tableau. Why? Because Tableau's metadata is not in database. Instead, it's in each XML, the TWB. Imagine a few hundred or thousands of XMLs try to understand what table, what column it connects to. It's become very hard. Back to 2013, I believe it's Andy, the first one, came up with TWB auditing. Try to figure out these things by one-time load all the XMLs, passing all XMLs, loaded to a small database so we can make sense of. Later on, Toby, thank you, and Jeff, they are further enhanced. This TWB auditor became like 2.0, 3.0. It helped quite a lot of audience. It has some gaps. One is it's kind of offline process. It takes hours, of course, to process. And also, I don't know how they handle the customer SQL thing, accuracy of customer SQL. Started from 19.3, Tableau came with Metadata API that can be enabled by TSM command. With that, actually, it does work for us. It is more like out-of-box TWB auditor. You ran this TSM maintenance command, enable the metadata. It automatically writes those Tableau metadata to a set of table, Postgres table, that can be accessed by the read-only users. That is a foundation for Tableau Catalog. Bingo, problem solved. Guess what? I believe this is still true. Tell me if I'm wrong. It was true, unless last year or so something dramatically changed. My understanding is that those set of features are available even you do not have data management add-on. Try it. For the 70% of teams, you don't have data management add-on yet. Try to see if you can enable TSM maintenance metadata service. If yes, good, that's still true. I believe it's still true. Let's assume it is still true. Tableau did not take this feature off yet. So basically, even you don't have a data management add-on, you can still access those tables by the read-only Postgres users. And then why you pay extra? Why you pay extra for the data management add-on? What are the new things if you pay a license? Like what other 1/3 of us did? Well, we pay license because we can make this lineage data not only available for the Postgres, basically server admin user, but also we can make this available to every single server users. Look at that, just like a screenshot, simple enough. If you have license, every single server users can see the lineage. Also, when they click data details, they can see a little bit more information. They can see a little bit more information about the column details, like who is, when was refresh happened, and so on. All right, sounds like a lot of marketing thing. Although I'm not trying to sell you, but I really love those features. I strongly recommend the data management add-on feature. This is out-of-box feature. When you have this data management add-on, you can just have the lineage information available to your server user, every single server user right away. Okay, switch. Let me also talk about a few advanced use cases of a data management add-on. You can find more details in my blog site here. I'm going to show you the 4 advanced use cases, more advanced. I say advanced means it's not really out of the box. You have to do some creative thinking, additional work. One is I'm using all those 4, by the way. It works for me. That's why I'm confident to share with you. You should be able to get it work for you. One is to detect PI data on the server. And even you want to delete the PI data automatically, can be done. The second use case, I'll dive into each of those. If you have a classified data, how do you make sure the permission is not get out of hands? You can also detect them. Third use case, if you have classic data, classified data or PI data, how you can make this data to be aware by your dashboard users. When they look at the view, can we show them they are looking at the classified data? Just like when they're reading some classified information, there is some stamp. Can we make that thing happen to them? The last one is extract the flow failure notified. The owners of the data source will always receive failures of their extracts. But the dashboard users are never aware of that. Is there any way we can make a dashboard user be aware? Hey, you're looking at this view, be aware this view, the most recent extracts failed. Just be aware. All right, I'm going to dive into each of those very quick. PII detection and deletion. What is use case? Or what is a problem we're trying to solve here? Tableau has a beautiful encryption at rest feature. Encryption at rest means it's encrypted when sitting in a file store or in sitting as hyperdata set. But it is not encrypted when it is loaded into the memory, or it's not encrypted when it is in transit, means transfer between network. Okay, so Tableau's encryption feature is it's called encryption at rest. Your organization may have some policies saying that for certain data set like Social Security, payment card, for any systems handle Social Security numbers, for example, they have to be encrypted all the time, even enclosed in memory in transit. Man, this is a very common data privacy, data security guidance. Now, what that means is Tableau server really cannot meet this standard to have like payment card information at all. Unless your Tableau server is hosted by like AWS, they can encrypt whole thing, everything. Like for example, otherwise your Tableau server may not be able to handle any payment card or Social Security information. You can say, yeah, I know that. That's why we're telling publishers, don't bring in this information. Well, the privacy auditors still come to me saying, how do you make sure they don't bring in those type of information? I say, I don't know. I have to rely on all the 5,000 publishers. That is not a very good answer. I turn back to them. How do I identify this information? Well, they gave me a list of PII, I call reference repository. It is a database table. It lists the company's database table, column names that are those type of very sensitive PII data. They're saying, can you make sure on the Tableau server, no one is putting those data set, these columns? Okay, fair enough. I'm using Tableau lineage table. Compare with PII reference repository table. Find out if there are any workbooks using those columns. If yes, guess what? I will send an alert to the account owner, and I will delete them right away. Depends on your company's policy. You can either alert them or delete them both, or do whatever your policy allows. So this is my use case. With that, I do have a peace of mind that my server is more clearance, right? No one has those data set. Then you may question, what if someone downloads the data set from from somewhere, EDW, for example, download it and then become Excel, then use that data set and upload to Tableau server as a one-time using the hyper. Possible, right? That's possible. They don't connect to the original data source. They just download one time, download somewhere. I do have that as well, the approach as well. I compare the column names. So I have a list of text list of column names, okay? Those are likely the sensitive. Although now it's like say likely, not 100% sure anymore, right? So when I detect those type of things, my alert will be to the owners. I tell them, this is a sensitive data. Please confirm if it is PII data or not. If they confirm yes, we'll delete them. If they are saying no, okay, it's no. Because I'm comparing only the column names. In whatever cases, I never have to dive into the true data, scan the true data. The volume will be too big to do so. I'll come back with the questions, answer some of your questions you may have. Classify the data. Let's say you take care of the PII. Okay? There are other type of data, like your company secret, your R&D data, your future products data, and so on. Those are classified data, not really PI, not really personal data, but also very critical data set in the company that should not be out of hands. Unfortunately, those days with many collaboration tools like Dropbox, Box, Slack, Quip, all those collaboration tools, it makes people so easy to share, make it very easy for people to share information, which is good. But on the other side, it does create additional challenge to making sure data is not getting out of hands. Tableau is kind of one of those, because Tableau is pretty easy for people to collaborate and share data on the server. Actually make it more easier, can refresh data automatically and so on. So how do we make sure Tableau server, if there is any classified data, is not getting out of hands? Okay. Solution, what's the solution? I compare the classified data permission that is outside Tableau with Tableau content permission. Okay. Classified data, first of all, how to identify the classified data? Someone like this outside Tableau server platform team has to provide a list of classified data. This is basically repository. Again, similar to PI. your organization may have such a repository. Saying this data set is classified, may have a classification code and so on, right? Who is allowed to see this data? Let's call it a disclosure repo. Your organization likely has that. If not, everything together maybe is piece by piece, called disclosure repo. Which kind of classified data can be accessed by which kind of users? Likely those users, maybe they signed a special disclosure agreement within your organization. They are allowed to see this data set. So that is your reference. That is your master set. Then you compare that against your Tableau data source workbook permissions, period. And then you find out the difference. Then you alert data owners. This is what I call classified data permission draft detection process. Third use case. No matter you have classified data or PI data on the server, is there any way we can let the dashboard user, we talk about end user, is there any way for the end user to be aware that they are looking at very sensitive data? Just be careful, your left, right, be careful, don't read this dashboard in a public place. Don't take a screenshot, something like that. Then a way to remember them about the sensitive data they are reading. Well, there is an out-of-box feature called data quality warning. But the problem of this feature, okay, data quality warning, the problem of that data quality warning is that it asks every workbook to be enabled one by one by the owner. Of course, that's a Tableau's feature. So what we did is that we simplified our process. We asked the data owner to tag the workbook, just like that. Give an example. Sensitive 01, for example, code is a sensitive code. We ask them to tag the workbook. Once they tag the workbook, we will automatically use an API to enable the data quality warning to just simplify the process. And guess what? This is a code also using in the same code used in the previous example before. That is this example, permission drift. So it's like one stone kills two birds. In this, I can, when the same tag, when they tag, I compare with disclosure to understand which one is which for the permission, but also I use the same tag to alert end users. But you can use them separately. You can have a different tag if you want. There is an API to enable data quality warning automatically. This is what we're doing. Number 4 use case extracts our flow failures. Today, every single time when Tableau extracts our flow failed, it sends email, of course, to the content owner, which is great. The problem is that the dashboard user, pretty much they're never aware if this data is not refreshed. Is there any way we can let them know? Bingo, this is out-of-box feature as well from Tableau. However, again, I think by default, this one should be enabled by Tableau automatically for every single workbook. I don't know why Tableau did not do so. Although it is an out-of-box feature, but by default, it is off for every single workbook. Tableau is asking the content owners to enable that one by one. After a lot of research, I feel there's no harm to enable them all. So what we did is using API to enable the flag, extracts refresh monitoring, or flow running monitoring for all the workbooks and all the flows on the server. So what it does is, as what I highlighted here, whenever it's failed, on the dashboard, it shows a little bit details. When people click, they can see more information. Very few people click, to be honest with you. But at least there's information available to your dashboard owners. So what's beauty of this feature is that next time when the extracts of flow completes successfully, this flag is gone automatically. Again, this flag is you will see this flag when the extract failed. The flag will be gone when the refresh success. No matter if you click the right now or you schedule refresh or whatever. So this is beautiful, beautiful. All right, that's all I wanted to share. Let's recap. We talked about Tableau prep conductor. Can run the flow on the server, can union or join the extracts, can write output to the external database, can run the flow one by one, notify me when it's done, strong data profiling, and efficient data cleaning. Catalog is the main lineage, beautiful lineage, available for all server users. Data quality warning, you can try to leverage them in a smarter way. I showed you advanced use cases, detect PII, classify data, alert dashboard users for the classified data or for the failures of your extract flows. Last month, Tableau came with new virtual connection and data policy. I'm gonna give it to Sanjeev, who is gonna demo those brand new features.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Sanjeev, and I'm a product manager in charge of some of the new features that we just launched in 2021.4. So I'm going to give you an overview of these features and a quick demo of virtual connections and our row level security. So first off, I want to add on to the context that Mark started about the offerings that we have within the data management add-on. So we talked about Tableau Prep, Tableau Catalog, and these have been the two pillars of data management: data preparation and analytics catalog. And with the data security features that we just launched, we're adding a third pillar to data management, that of governed data access. And I want to illustrate that this is a pillar parallel to these other ones to point out the fact that this is not just one feature that we're adding. This is an area of investment where we're going to continue to drive new features and new functionality within data management to make a full-fledged suite of governed data access tools. We also will be leveraging some of the technology that we're building to expand into other areas besides data access. Like in the future, we'll be investing into data quality monitoring, data freshness, and how you can set up policies to enforce all of these types of governance in Blue. So next, I'll set the stage for virtual connections and these new features by talking a bit about the pattern that I've seen in governance within enterprises. And I think many of you are going to be very familiar with this because you live in this world. Since Tableau deployments grew and became more pervasive in large enterprises, we've seen that the governance strategy tends towards one of two extremes. On one hand, you have the high security environments where data is sensitive and needs to be secured, and that is the primary goal. So the keys to databases are generally restricted. Only a few people have access to those, typically admins, DBAs, or data stewards. And therefore, anybody who wants to get access to that data needs to request those credentials. And in the most extreme cases where those credentials simply can't be shared broadly, this means that the data owners have to be in charge of everything that connects directly to that data. So they need to create data models and data sources. They need to create the security rules on those. And that means that often they are doing work that isn't their area of expertise. I've talked to customers that have very sophisticated and elaborate processes where someone who needs a data model has to formally specify it and write up very detailed description of it. So a DBA can then go create that data model within Tableau for them to use because they can't do it themselves. On the other extreme, we have very strong self-service environments where data security is less of a concern. So you're freer to give people access to whatever data they need. So anyone who needs to get data from a database can just email someone, talk to them, get the credentials to that database, and create the content they want. The upside of this is the people who have the analytic need can create the data models they need. They can create the workbooks they need. They're very free to do that. But the downside is now the connections to the data are spread all over the Tableau environment. So it's very hard to audit or secure the data because no one person controls that. There's lots of different people who have direct access to the data. This also means that anyone can potentially download and copy and edit data sources or vizzes. And again, this has an upside and a downside. The upside is if you see a dashboard that is similar to something you want to do, you just download it, edit it, and your work is much easier. But the downside is if you try to put any security into that dashboard, like a data source filter or a user filter, anyone can just download it, edit it to remove that filter and see the full data set. So any filtering you do would end up being for convenience rather than security. So with the features that we've added in 2021.4, we want to enable people to live in the middle of this world with a self-service access to data while still maintaining security and governance. So in the case of database credentials, you can still keep tight control over the credentials themselves while giving people access to the data. And I'll show you how that's going to work when we talk about virtual connections. The responsibility for security of the data and modeling of the data can be separated. So the person who owns the data will be responsible for securing it and applying filters, but anyone can access that secured and filtered data to create and share data models. And once they create and publish these models or vizzes, because they didn't have to worry about security, they can share it with anyone they want. Security has already been taken care of. And anyone who views that viz is going to see the properly filtered subset of data that they're allowed to see. And in the next few slides and in the demo, I'll be showing exactly how this works. So let's take the case of embedded connections, the way that connections have worked in Tableau for years now. When you create a workbook, you connect directly to the database. If you publish a data source, it also connects directly to the database, and then workbooks use that data source, and so on with prep flows, anything like that. So you see you have multiple copies of that connection information, by which I mean the credentials to the database, the URL, any other properties that are needed to define the connection. So if you want to take extracts of that, you take extracts at each particular piece of content. If you want to add security filters, you add data source filters or user filters to each piece of content. We're introducing a new content type in 2021.4 called virtual connections or VCons. And the idea basically is to remove that embedded connection from each piece of content and centralize it in one single object. So now you can have one person define that connection and define the credentials and ownership of the connection itself without restricting who has access to it. They can open that up to everyone if that's what they want to do. So this carries its own benefits because you no longer have the connection information replicated across all of your content. So if, say, the password to your database rotates every month, now you have one place where you go update that password instead of having to coordinate across all the owners of all the content. But the even bigger benefit that a virtual connection allows is it's now the single point through which all access to those tables in that database must flow. And that means you now have one single point where you can define your security rules, you can take extracts, and you know that it's always going to apply to all that downstream content. There is no other way that someone can go get access to those tables in that database. So now this opens up the world of centralized policies. And I'll call back to the pillars that I showed a few slides ago. This is where we are going to continue to invest in more and more types of policies. Right now, in 2021 and 2022, my team is focused on building security policies, but you can imagine many more types of policies like data freshness, data acceleration, also would benefit from this type of centralization, having a single place to define how you want the data itself to be managed, independent of the data models and the analytics that are done further down the line. So to reiterate a couple benefits of virtual connections, you no longer need to share the credentials with everyone in the organization, so you can have much tighter control over the service accounts or non-human accounts that are used to access that data. You don't need to give everyone their own individual accounts in the database if that's what you're doing today, or you don't need to share the service account credentials with everyone and potentially risk having too many people know those secrets. Virtual connections also form a layer of abstraction between all your Tableau content and the database tables, which lets you manage your physical databases with more agility. Say if a schema changes in the database or a field name changes, you can use that layer of indirection in the virtual connection to make that change invisible downstream. So for example, if I change the name of a field, I could edit the virtual connection to surface that same field by the previous name, and now everyone who was referring to it by the old name is unaffected by that change in the database. Next, I will introduce the concept of data policies for row-level security in the demo. And this is the first of many types of data policies that we are supporting on virtual connections. And this is a way to filter the data row by row based on a condition or property of the user who's viewing it. And what's more, we've built a totally new experience for creating these policies that lets you visually verify that the policy is working properly right within the flow where you're editing it. And the last point I want to make about virtual connections is that you can use them live or extracted. And a benefit here is that an extract of a virtual connection will contain all the tables, and any downstream content that uses that virtual connection will use that single extract. So if you have the same table used in 100 different data sources, you don't need to extract it 100 times. You'll extract it once and save the space and time required to execute that extract refresh. And because these are all part of the same set of features, extracts and data policies work nicely together. So just because you've taken an extract doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your row-level security filtering. The row-level security filtering will work in downstream content, whether the virtual connection is live or extracted, and there'll be no difference in the way that downstream users see that policy enacted. So that's an overview of exactly what this is, but I want to actually show you what this looks like. And some of you may already be using this. Some of you may have seen some of the demos on YouTube, but I want to go through some of the features so you can see it firsthand. So I am running a post 21.4 build, but this is very similar to what you would see in 21.4. If you have the data management add-on, you'll see this ability to create a new virtual connection, the same as you would create any other content. And when you create that, you'll be presented with a very familiar connection dialog, and you can choose to connect to whatever you want. I'm going to pick a Snowflake database for now. And now I can just select the database that I want to use. I see all the tables that are available, and I just want to add all of these tables to my virtual connection. Now I can take a look at these tables and preview them in various ways. I can see what's the schema of the data. I can see some sample data to make sure that everything looks the way I want. And then once I know that it's good, I'm just going to publish that. So now let me switch hats for a second. And let's say now, instead of the owner of that data, I'm just any creator, and I want to use that data from those tables in my workbook. So I'm going to create a brand new workbook. And just like I would before, I can see a set of content on this site, but I have a new option of virtual connections. I'm going to pick that virtual connection that I just showed you. And now, without having to know that this came from Snowflake, without needing any credentials or anything like that, I immediately have access to the tables in here. And that's based on the permissions that were granted by the owner of that virtual connection. So those could be restricted or allowed however they want. So I'm just going to make a quick little viz to show me how many invoices were shipped to each city. And there you go. That was pretty straightforward. So switching back to the virtual connection, now let's say that as the owner of this data, I want to add some security policies to filter that data. So I'm going to create a new policy, and I want to make that policy work with the invoices table. And I want to filter it based on that ship city field that I used earlier. So I'm going to say ship city equals Seattle. So now when I look at the details of that table, I can preview it with policy applied. So I see right away that only 40 rows out of the 2,000 some that were in the original data set are included. And if I take a look, I can see that the city is always Seattle. That's what I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and publish those changes. Now, if I go back to that workbook I was looking at, and I refresh the data source, and I only have to refresh it because I'm in the middle of an editing session. If I came into this fresh, this is what I would immediately see. I only see data for Seattle, and there is no way for me to see any of that other data. No matter where I create this content, who I share it with, it's impossible to see any other cities because they're being filtered out at the virtual connection level. So that's not a super interesting filter because it's just static. Let's say that I wanted to filter it based on who's viewing the data. So we have this salesperson field. And I want to say that if the salesperson name matches the full name of the current user, then we'll show it. So now I want to preview with policy applied, and it says 0 rows of 2000 some. And that's because I'm a DBA. I'm not a salesperson, so I don't appear anywhere in this data. But I do know someone who does appear as a salesperson. So I'm going to choose to preview this data as Laura Callahan. So while I'm in this editor, I have the ability to preview the results of my policy as any user on the site. And the reason I'm given that power is because in order to get in here, I've already proven I have access to all of the underlying data. So I'm not elevating my own privilege to see anything I shouldn't be allowed to see or anything I wouldn't be allowed to see otherwise. But no one else has the ability to do this. You can't do this type of preview with policy applied as any user unless you're in this policy editing experience. So let's say that I want to double check that my policy is working properly and there's too much data to sift through manually. I have another option for previewing where I can look at the distribution of the various values for a certain field. So here I'm looking at salesperson and I can see there's exactly one value and that value is Laura Callahan. If I turn off the previewing with policy applied, now I can see the full data set contains 9 different people. So my policy is working properly. I'm going to go ahead and publish that. I'm not going to show you what the workbook would look like because I'd be viewing it as me. I have no access to this data, so it will be totally blank. But if I publish that workbook and then logged in as Laura Callahan to view it, I would see only the subset of rows that Laura Callahan is the salesperson for. So now let's create the same policy, but for the orders table. So I'm going to bring the orders table in, and I want to filter that on salesperson. But if I look at the available fields, there is no salesperson field in the orders table. All I have is employee ID, and I can't filter based on employee ID because I don't have a user function that specifies that. So what I need to do is find some way to relate employee ID to something I can filter on. And to do that, I'm going to use this employees table as an entitlement table. So what that means is employees contains a mapping from the fields I have to the fields I want. And I just set up that relationship, which is going to be based on the employee ID field in both tables. And now I can use any field from employees to filter the orders table. So I'm going to go ahead and write a very similar policy to what you saw before and say full name equals the full name field from the employees table. And now let's take a look at the employee ID field of orders. We can see there's 9 values corresponding to my 9 salespeople. And with policy applied, I only see Laura Callahan. So now I have some additional flexibility in how I create this policy. It doesn't have to be just one rule. So I could also say if the full name matches the full name or is member of, say, admins. So now, if I'm a member of the group admins, I can see all the data. If I'm not, then I would have to be able to match my full name to the full name. I could even add another clause that checks if the username is me, and I'm logged in as dev admin right now. So now, if I go ahead and view this as me, instead of viewing it as Laura Callahan, I can see all the values. If I delete that clause, then this will refresh to show me that I can see nothing. So I can combine together lots of different types of access into one policy to grant different groups and different types of users access to the rows that matter to them. Now, one more thing I want to show you is this employees table. I needed to include it in my virtual connection so that I could use it as an entitlement table. I don't actually want it to be available to anyone who's using the virtual connection because there may be some secret information in there. So I can include it in the virtual connection, but set the visibility to false. And what that means is no one using the virtual connection can see that table, but it's still available to me as the owner and editor of this virtual connection. So if I switch back over to that workbook, that employees table would no longer be available to me. All I would see is invoices and orders. So this is a basic overview of how all of this works. There's a lot more information in our public documentation, and there's a few videos on YouTube that Tableau Tim made when we launched 21.4 that dive into this. But for now, this is all the content I have. So I think at this point, I will turn it back over to Mark for Q&A and the rest of the session.
Okay, thank you. All right, now it's a Q&A time. There are a bunch of questions in the Q&A already. I forgot to answer live after I'm done with my session, but I answered quite some by type the answer. Let me recap, quick recap some of those people asked. One is I know that I have my conservation not using the migration process when people publish workbooks. Then how do you actually handle that for the teams, for the organizations that truly you will need to test dashboard seriously before production? My strong recommendations is to use more like staging table concept. Probably some of you are doing this already. In the staging table, people can publish the workbooks and then open to a small subset of audience for them to test, give feedback, and so on, validate the data. Once everything is okay, then the content owner can move the workbook from a staging table to the official production table. You may also apply the process where who can move. Actually, when you move, only the project leaders can move. And the person who does the move have to be the project leaders or have to be the publish privilege on both source and target projects. Think about that. You can play the permission process with that. Let's say 50 people can publish to a staging, but only 5 people can publish to final production. So basically, those only 5 people can move. That's another way of control. The beauty of the move, the content from one project to another project, is that the dashboard URL stays the same. I repeat, the dashboard URL will not change after move. That's beauty. Even it is true if you move out of your brand new personal folder, that is brand new 21.4 feature. Using move and permission control of the target production folder can be another approach to avoid instance. When I say instance, avoid the Tableau server from test, because when you move, there's no move from a test server to production server, but there is a move from the same server from project A to project B. That is my approach, but if you will have to use migration, you have to use, but I will not recommend. I will not recommend that at all still. That's one question, one common question people have. Another comment saying the license. Okay, I didn't know that. They say contact sales. There was someone type there. The sales may give you the data management add-on free. Lucky for you, lucky you if you got that. Good for you. I didn't know that. Okay, I paid, but if they give you free or very cheaper price, good for you. Thanks for Tableau. That's something that's new to me. All right, there are a couple of other questions around the PII encryption. Michael Lin is pending there. Is encryption a PI by default half of your validation? You have a lot of PI data. Basically, the question is, can we turn off that for certain size, a part of a server, not other part of the server? I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that. You apply the encryption. Encryption can be turned on or off by site. That's the one I know. There are three options you can for each site. One is you want on or off for the site, or you can say enforced or enabled. You enforce PI, the encryption for the site. It means that every single extract will be encrypted for the site. If you enable it for the site, it means you allow the content owner to decide each of their workbook they want to encrypt at rest or not. If it's off, means it's off for the site. So maybe that if that's what you're asking for, the capability, the feature is there. The encryption can be on and off by site, but not PII. When you say PII, I'm not quite sure. Tableau, I'm not aware of the PII. Tableau has PII, but someone mentioned about Tableau may have a workbook, something PII. I'm not quite sure. Does anyone have experience using Net, IQ, U-Directory, LDAP? I don't know. Others may jump in and help. Next question is for Sanjeev. Validation. Okay.
Hi, I was just scrolling to find that question.
Yeah.
So this question was about if we have a governance feature for restricting the values within a certain field to a set of valid values. I don't have any feature like that today. One thing you potentially could do is use the entitlement table feature that I demoed to join, and I'm making finger quotes when I say join because it's not actually a join, but set up a relation based on that field with a table that is a list of the acceptable values, and then filter based on whether that table matches anything. So I think it would be possible to achieve what you want using a row level security policy, but I'd have to dive in a little more to your use case to fully understand whether that achieves what you want. So if you'd like to reach out to me offline or outside of this venue, I could talk to you about that a little bit more. If that's a larger use case that a lot of people want to know about, then we can explore it like that.
Okay, thank you. Next question is around data governance. The description column for the data source is not there. It's not what Michael is looking for. Michael is looking for a similar Tableau desktop using comments for description. I agree with you. But the more problem around that is the permission of the external content, external asset. So the people who can think about who can update the description of the external asset. When I use the term external asset, it means the catalog data. I think Tableau's design is too conservative for that. Initially, the permission who can update external asset is only given to admin. I've been talking with Tableau dev for a while for this permission process. I recommend Tableau dev. Hopefully that is a feature they are going to implement. I recommend that why not give to each project leader or project admin? The same thing. Used to be called project leader, right now it's called project admin. Why not let each project admin to be able to update the external asset? Although there is potential still concern where one table can be used by 3 projects. Each project may have 2 admins. Now you have 6 people can potentially update the external asset, and they may have conflicting information. True. I know this is why Tableau dev at the beginning, like nobody has it. Nobody can update. That's just like making the feature not available for anyone at all. I still think give to 6 people, even from 3 different projects for them to update, they can figure out around among themselves. That's my recommendation. I don't know when this version will become available. To give a little bit more permission to the external asset. That's a comment. I guess it was cool. Next question is Brown. What about replication of the prep to dev for testing purposes? For the testing upgrade, what is the best practice to upgrade test? Okay. Okay. Yeah, upgrade testing. Okay, this is a very big topic. I will share with you what I do. Okay, is if we do not do good enough testing, then when there's issue, we are in the center. When I say we mean server admin team, but the server admin really is not in the right group of people to test each workbook. So the high level responsibility in my organization is that I will let each content owner to be responsible for their own workbook validation testing, period. After upgrade, if they complain their specific workbook has whatever issues, I don't look into those as a server admin team. So server admin team, we test our own whatever scripts, our own interface, Tableau interface with like AD groups and so on. We test certain features, but we don't test each individual workbook, first of all, okay? Now, which environment to test? Server platform team always go with dev, UAT, just making sure the understanding the upgrade process. Is a little bit challenging in my organization to open non-production environment to the end audience because login and so on, data set and so on. So I actually open up the disaster recovery instance for end users, for the content owners to validate the testing environment, which means before the upgrade, like 3 weeks before the upgrade, I always upgrade my disaster recovery first. You may not agree with me, a little bit risky, I know that, okay? I upgrade our disaster recovery first, and then we'll have them to test disaster recovery, which has similar data set as production, much easier for them to validate the testing. That's what I do. Nothing's perfect. Next question is about PI encryption. The PI encryption enable the default as I talked about because I'm still seeing the TSM. Okay, thank you. I think this is a confirmation that but this is a little bit confusing. I don't know, Michael, what you're talking about. You say PI encryption. I don't know what that means. Sorry, you may want to make it more clear for this. PI manager. Ali saying there is a PII manager provided by someone from Tableau, maybe. That's a new, I'm not aware of. Please share more information around that. Love to see what it does. Thank you. Provided by Tableau Pro service. I'm also in my PI validation, everything I'm working with the Pro service. I don't know if that come from there. I don't know. We are planning to POC it. Okay, do it, please. Yeah, PI is important. Toby, that's a question for you. Sanjeev.
So I actually don't have a good answer for that. I don't have much visibility into the packaging and pricing decisions that were made for data management originally. I think this is definitely good feedback for data management in general, and I can pass that along, but I don't have an answer for why it works that way today.
Okay. Next question for you as well. Vikan.
Yeah, so virtual connections do not support generic JDBC and ODBC yet. At the time we were developing our set of connectors, those weren't supported with online and web authoring, but we're going to be adding support for connectors as they become available in online and web authoring. So we are going to be constantly reevaluating and adding connectors to the set that are supported by virtual connections.
Okay. Yeah, just Michael came back. During your talk, you mentioned about PI, and Michael thought it was a feature of 21.4. No, that is just that more like advanced use cases where you have to use Python, basically the script API to enable those PI features, and also needs additional the PI repository that someone likely you'll be working with your Privacy team to get that repository. Of course, encryption needs to be turned on, but what we talk about is even encryption is on. Okay, let's say even encryption at rest is on, it is still not good enough for Tableau server to handle certain data set like SSN, which is why we have to use the PII scripts. Basically, we developed by ourselves, working with Tableau professional service to alert or remove those type of data from server automatically. In your case, that you have a lot of SSN data set you cannot remove, but basically you'll find other way for alerting users. Sanjeev, that's another question for you.
So the question is, how do virtual connections connect to databases that are accessible by Bridge? Virtual connections are integrated with Bridge, so they would work the same way that you use Bridge today. There were also a lot of new Bridge features added that I won't go into now, but if you're using Bridge, that whole situation has become much easier to manage all your different Bridge agents, and virtual connections will work much the same way that existing content works.
Okay, I think we got to the bottom of all the questions. If you have a few more questions, feel free to submit in the next few minutes. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending this Tableau Virtual Server Admin user group. And if you want to share your learnings, everything with other audience, please reach out to me. In the next few months, I'll be happy to schedule sessions that you can also share your learnings, everything with the community. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Sanjeev.
everyone.
Thank you, Katie.